Welcome. We're excited to have everyone join us for today's webinar. I'm Anka Novakovic. I'm the president of EcoCoach, which is a DC-based sustainability consulting firm, and I co-manage the SmarterDC Challenge together with Patty Rose, executive director of Green Space. And if you're not familiar with the SmarterDC Challenge, it's a free, friendly competition for district businesses, nonprofits, property owners, and managers. And the purpose is to improve the sustainability of your organization and building operations. So whether you're just starting out or whether you're a pro, the challenge is really designed to strengthen your own sustainability initiatives through peer-to-peer support, in-person and online activities, and access to some great resources and by earning points. So we're in the second year, and we currently have close to 170 participating organizations and buildings. And be sure to check us out on our website at SmarterDCChallenge.com for more information. And now I'm going to hand it over to Patty to introduce the speakers.
Hi, everybody. This is Patty Rose. We have three fantastic speakers today who will be sharing with you some great information on how you can conserve, manage, and optimize energy use in your restaurant, hotel, or building. Roger Frechette is managing principal at Interface Engineering, and Roger will kick off the session with a framework for thinking about and implementing smarter solutions to improve your organization's or building's energy management. And next, we'll have Stu Newbold, Director of Operations of Think Food Group, and he will share his perspectives on and experience with Think Food Group's plans for and engagement of their team of staff and consultants in improving the energy management and conservation of their restaurants. The presentations will conclude with Jeff Clark, Conserve Program Director for the National Restaurant Association, discussing steps you can take to conserve energy and sharing results from some recent restaurant energy audits. Before we get started, Anka is going to go over a few housekeeping items.
Thanks, Patty. You should all be able to see the presentation title slide in the middle of your screen, and all attendees are muted to minimize any background noise. If you have a question during the presentation, please type it into the question box, the chat box on the right-hand side of the screen. We're going to have time to answer questions after the three presenters complete their presentations, so we're not going to stop in between the presentations, but we will make sure to address all your questions at the end. We're also hoping that there won't be any technical glitches, but if you're experiencing any issues, just refer to the reminder email that was sent to you today for technical support. You can have a live chat in there. The webinar is being recorded, and we're going to be sending you the recording, and we're also going to be posting it on the SmarterDC Challenge YouTube channel. I also wanted to thank Jeff Clark and the National Restaurant Association for hosting the webinar today, so thanks very much. We really appreciate it, Jeff. And now, Roger, take it away.
Well, thank you so much, and good afternoon, everybody. So what I am going to focus on this afternoon is answering the question how to get the most out of your energy dollars for building. And within Washington, D.C., and in fact around the country, building owners can spend tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars on their energy bills. So imagine if that number could be reduced. Imagine if that number could be eliminated. And and we'll even talk about a potential of getting a building altered to the point where that building could be what is known as a positive energy building, generating more energy than it consumes. When we hear about these very high-performing buildings, quite often we hear the myth that this can be done in new construction. But today I'm going to show how that isn't necessarily the case, how your existing building can be changed and altered to get to that same high level of performance. So we don't want to leave money on the table. So the basic approach to modifying or altering these buildings is to take a design approach which is sustainable, high-performing, low-energy, low-carbon, and regenerative. And truly sustainable buildings have a lot of attributes to them that go well beyond energy efficiency, return on investment, and payback. However, those are the elements that I'm going to focus on for this discussion. So the basic approach that we have taken in our designs is highlighted in this one slide: reduction, reclamation, absorption, and generation. What that means is for reduction, we look at all the different components of the building's operation that consume energy, consume electricity, consume gas, consume water. And we look for ways to reduce that appetite for consumption. Once we do that, our second step is what we call reclamation. And the general idea is that once you put energy into the building, you don't want to let it out. You want to capture it, and you want to reuse it over and over again. Once we have considered all the different reclamation strategies that can be incorporated, then we jump to what we call absorption. And all buildings are surrounded by energy. There's all sorts of energy streams that flow around the building, that hit the building, that travel underneath the building. So part of the strategy is to look for ways to tap into those energy streams, draw them into the building, and use them for the benefit of the building's operation. Once we've done those first three things, now we've reduced a building's energy consumption down pretty much as far as it can be and get it to a low, what is called an EUI, energy use intensity. And once you've got that very low EUI number, now it's time to explore the generation strategies. And this is looking for opportunities to put renewable energy systems onto a building to generate power to equal or exceed the amount of energy that you still are consuming within the building. So I'm going to talk quickly about one case study of where we've done this here locally or are doing this locally. And it is for a building called the American Geophysical Union Building on Florida Avenue. We started the process by really exploring all the different energy conservation strategies that we could think of. And we started with putting a list together of about 40 or 50 of them and analyzing every strategy independently. We even went as far to write individual white papers on each of the strategies that were considered, looking at everything from not only how much energy you could save to what it would cost, to the availability of the products, to competition, to other examples of where these strategies have been used in the U.S. and abroad, and eventually came down to a much shorter list of what we call our bundled strategies that would be used in the building. So if you're not familiar with it, this is the image of the AGU building, headquarters building, which sits on the corner of 20th Street and Florida Avenue, Northwest. And the very first thing we had to do is essentially turn the building from a real building into a digital building so that we could do a bunch of digital analytics on the building to understand exactly how the building operates initially, and then how each individual strategy considered would impact that energy, water, gas consumption from an hourly basis, weekly, monthly, annually, and be able to have a strong predictive tool. To start that process, we create a digital energy model, a digital representation of the building that functions precisely as the real building does, given all the information that we were able to collect. So these are the graphs that this model creates, and what you see is in the dotted lines, the dotted blue line is the electricity that was consumed over the last year by the building, and the red dotted line is the natural gas consumption from the building during the course of the year. The solid blue and red lines is what the energy model tells us that exact building, how it should have performed. So the numbers are not exact, and they never can be when creating digital models, but statistically, these numbers were close enough for us to say that the buildings, the real building and the modeled building, are statistically equivalent. So again, there is, I would say, no single magic bullet to get a building to low energy, to zero energy, and to positive energy. There's no one system that you can select that gets you there. It really does take a combination of a number of different strategies from all of those 4 food groups that I mentioned earlier: reduction, reclamation, absorption, and generation, paired together and working together to be able to achieve that mark. So for the American Geophysical Union headquarters building, the 24 strategies listed on this page are the 24 that we needed to be able to pull together to achieve that level of performance. And I will not go through all of them. I will just touch on a couple of them. So one of the first and very important elements are the windows in a building. Compared to a building's exterior wall, so much more energy is lost and transferred through the glass. So having very good glass is a very important piece of the overall approach. And in this particular building, we are using what is called triple pane glass, 3 layers of glass with very high thermal performance and very good solar heat gain performance. And that is a reduction strategy, reducing the building's energy consumption. The next system that is being installed into this existing building is what's called a radiant ceiling cooling system, considered by many in the U.S. to be a very cutting-edge advanced system. However, it's not really. It is a system that has been used very consistently and reliably by the Germans for more than 30 years. But now is being considered more and more frequently in the United States. Using this kind of system, which uses water to create a cool surface for the entire ceiling plane to have a radiation exchange with people in the building, provides a much higher level of thermal comfort. It's a very quiet system, and it leads to extreme reductions in energy consumption compared to conventional air handling unit type system designs. Lighting is also very important, and LED light emitted diode fixtures are becoming very common and are used quite frequently now in the Washington, D.C. market, which is great to see. Again, a significant reduction strategy. And within the AGU building, we are using something which is, I believe, quite innovative, and that is the grid that holds up the ceiling, that holds up these radiant panels. The 2x2 grid is, in fact, electrified. We have DC current running through the grid, so all of the light fixtures within the space and many of the other devices within the building use the DC energy by clipping directly onto that grid. The reason this is so significant is the building is also powered by a photovoltaic system, and PV, photovoltaic arrays, generate DC power. Quite often you may hear that PV has very long payback periods, and the reason that has been true in the past is that the power that these grids generate, DC, need to be converted into AC power to be effectively used in office buildings. So this approach changes that trend, where we're taking the direct current from the photovoltaic cells directly into the building and using that power directly into the light fixtures and other devices without having to go through that transformation and all the energy losses associated with converting it into AC power. The building is also being outfitted with what is called a dedicated outside air system, a DOAS system, which uses 100% outside air to keep the building pressurized and properly ventilated. And this system comes with a heat recovery system. So all the building that has to be exhausted, all the air that has to be exhausted from the building, the energy within that air is reclaimed and reused, which is why this is labeled as a reclamation strategy. The next thing we did is we added, I'll challenge those listening in to try to say this word 10 times fast, a hydroponic phytoremediation system, also called a hi-fi system. This is a live planted system that takes air from the space and draws the air through the plants, but also the root systems of these plants, and by doing so, filters the air, cleanses the air, removes large particles, and also oxygenates the air. So it's a way to create a much better and high-quality indoor air environment. But because these plants are providing oxygen to the space, it reduces the need to bring in and condition outside air, which can be very energy intensive, particularly in Washington where the summer times can be so hot and humid. So this is a reclamation strategy by reclaiming that energy already within the space. Water cannot be overlooked. There are new stormwater regulations within Washington, D.C. that require you to capture rainwater on the roofs of the buildings. And within our project here, we're taking that one step further. Not only are we capturing that water, but we are reusing it. The stormwater that falls under the roof is filtered, it is cleaned, it is chemically treated, and then we use that water for the flushing of all the toilets within the building and for all the irrigation needs surrounding the building. The radiant system that I mentioned earlier also eliminated the need for cooling towers on the building. So essentially the only water that is coming into the building from the city is that required for sinks and showers, more than a 90% reduction in the total water consumption. The next system is an absorption strategy. I mentioned earlier about the ability to tap into and extract energy from streams around the building. Well, this is a perfect case of that. Directly in front of our building, 35 feet under the street, is a combined city storm and sanitary line. We are burrowing down into the earth, tapping into this line, extracting fluid from this line, and then using that fluid as a heat transfer medium. Essentially, we are using the city's sewer system to heat and cool our building. And then lastly, the generation strategy. Now that we've gotten the EUI as low as possible, we do need to have the ability to produce energy with renewables. And renewables, through the use of PV, is going to become more and more popular, particularly because of this graph right here. This shows the cost per watt of photovoltaics in our country over the last 25 years or so. It has really dropped, and it continues to do so. And it is going to become more and more difficult to explain why not to use PV on new buildings and building renovations, given that it is becoming so affordable. And in addition to
Roger,
becoming
sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
You have about a minute or so left.
Yep, I'm down to my last couple slides. This is what the PV array will look like on the HGU building. And in addition to those strategies that I mentioned, there are probably 20 others or so that all add up to that performance. But this is the graph of what happens on the project. The long orange bar to the right shows how much energy the building used to consume. The shorter orange bar shows what happens when you employ all of the reduction strategies. And then when you add the generation from the PV, the net outcome, all of it, is a positive 46 megawatt hours. So essentially, the building will push energy back onto the grid, and the building will receive a check from the utility company each month for its power it has generated. So with all this extra money, you can enjoy your dinner, have fun, relax, and celebrate having achieved a positive energy status. And that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. You?
Hello, this is Stuart Newbold, and I'm here with Elizabeth. And I have to admit, before I start this presentation, this is a first for me. Normally, I'd be speaking about the art of hospitality, exemplary food execution, leadership in the restaurant industry, but never in my wildest imagination would I think that I'd be speaking about energy. But here I am, and I'll speak from the standpoint of my personal experience. Elizabeth's here with me, and we approached this as best we knew how to. We first realized that we didn't know much about this, and we felt as though it was important for three different reasons. First of all, we heard that it might make financial sense. Everything that we do in business has to, at some point, make money. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense. We also know that we're all looking for the best possible people to be able to work with. And millennials and people that we work with these days are attracted to, and our existing people are retained better by participating in this type of perspective. They want to be a part of a company that this is important to. And then there's the moral issue. It's just plain and simply the right thing to do for the earth and the imprint that we make on it. On the examples and a lot of the slides that you'll see, I used Zetinia. Hopefully everybody's been to Zetinia. If you haven't, please go soon. But a spectacular restaurant that, and that was our first, the largest footprint, and we felt as though if there was going to be one good test, that would be it. And as you'll see, the results have been very, very strong. What we looked for first was a consultant, since we could in no way, shape, or form do this on ourselves. I can teach people how to take care of others, how to flip a steak, and those types of things, but certainly not how to calculate energy savings. So we interviewed several consultants and settled on a spectacular person, really, who happens to be the CEO of Energy Sherlock. And what we were looking for is truly somebody that we felt was a partner, really wanted to collaborate very well, really understood what we did, what our industry was about, able to provide service at the same level that we do, was sensitive to things like working overnight, cleans up after himself, and the particular needs of whether it be how a dishwasher works, the needs of the employees there, to the makeup air, to the air conditioning, and the needs in different parts of the dining room, so that that was a seamless change. And some of the other things that we looked at were the surrounding services. They're able to monitor a lot of the equipment through their offices. They can go online and tell us if we're currently having an issue with an air conditioning unit and which one it is, and probably what is causing it, so that the repair costs are very limited. So instead of somebody coming and working 3 hours on a project, it might take a half hour or an hour because it's already been identified. As well as things like monitoring temperatures, temperature settings during different parts of the year for the equipment. On the next slide that you're seeing, this is one of the most important pages that I reviewed with our consultant. And it describes the things that he suggested that we would do. There's others on this phone call that really understand that first column. I only understand it superficially. The column that really I felt was important was the first one, how much it was going to cost to implement these changes, how much on what was it called, the payback, that how long was it going to take based on the calculations to pay off that initial investment, and then over 10 years, what was the probable savings, therefore the ROI over 10 years. So you can see just in 4 categories that we will save over 10 years on just this one restaurant $250,000. And so, you know, this happened during the last quarter of 2015. The next slide will show you the preliminary results of what we were able to do just in electric cost. And you can see that the amount of money that we spent on electricity, that the payback will be much quicker than 2 years. In terms of roadblocks and lessons learned, you know, there's many, restaurants are intense. There's a lot going on in every square foot. And the design issues, if we even just look at light bulbs, anybody that we're about to roll this out into all restaurants, including Chino. Now, the first thing you'll notice when you go to Chino is the vast array of light bulbs, designer look. And so when we're looking to move to a more energy efficient light bulb, just making that hurdle was a challenge. There are many other design issues that can be a challenge, but that's a good example. The locked temperature controls pose some challenges with guests arriving at that right temperature. So we had to play with that for some period of time. Different stations, you know, and how we approach it for anybody that knows how to cook on a wok, or what a dim sum station looks like, and the water usage. You know, we had to install pieces of equipment that would tell us the rate of water flow and get our team to understand that. And then just the dishwashers, just a different perspective on how to accomplish their job and still be able to save money. You know, we have an outdoor patio, and instead of using a hose just to hose it down, we have dramatically reduced the cost by implementing a different nozzle head and all of those types of things that we've been exposed to by working with Energy Sherlock. So I'm going to keep my comments at that. If there's any questions at the end, this should leave a little bit of time for that.
Great. Thank you so much, Stu, for that. And
great.
Jeff.
Yeah, this is Jeff Clark. I'm the Conserve Program Director at the National Restaurant Association. And these are great presentations looking at how to save energy on a very broad level across your restaurant or within building design. And I kind of want to go through some things we've seen and we help restaurateurs implement on a day-to-day basis, kind of the quick, easy steps, often very low or no cost to implement directly. So first, about the Conserve program and the National Restaurant Association, if you haven't heard of it before, We're part of, obviously, the association itself, which represents all of the restaurants within the United States. There's about 1 million of them. We do a lot of research and a lot of outreach communication for the industry. We also have 53 state partners when you include Puerto Rico, Guam, and the District of Columbia. And any member of the state association is obviously automatically a member of the national association. So with Conserve, we're really trying to inspire environmental action within the restaurant community. We have about 80 videos on YouTube, both inspiring interviews and best practices themselves. We have a lot of blogs. We have a monthly newsletter that we put out. So I'd be happy to sign anyone up that's interested. We also do perform research, and a lot of what I'm going to talk about here is taken directly from energy and water audits around the District of Columbia. So what do you want to do to start? And these are the 6 steps that we've kind of found really help to save energy and really the low-hanging fruit. So number 1, and this may seem obvious, but you'd be surprised, is just to fix leaks in your restaurant. You say, well, leaks are really water savings, but not if you have to heat the water. If that is actually coming from the dishwasher or a hose line that does go into that is heated, you are using energy to heat that water to prepare cleaning your dishes and all that fun stuff that needs to happen. And we've found just a pretty small leak is actually a surprising amount of energy and water. I've myself found a leak that was 19,000 gallons of water a year, and that was $415 of energy use, water, and sewer costs to that restaurant that was literally just going down the drain. So fix leaks when you can. Step 2 is to swap out your pre-rinse spray valve. And that, of course, is in your dish room. And if you have an older one or a cracked one that isn't working properly, it uses many, many, many hundreds or thousands of gallons of water a year more than needed. You can now get new ones that are under a gallon per minute, and they cost about $70. And often that pays for itself, of $300 worth of savings within the first year, no problem. Did an audit here locally, and that restaurateur, by switching out an older one, saved $860 a year if used just 2 hours a day. So really, really easy, simple thing to switch out, and you literally unscrew the old one and screw in the new one. It couldn't be simpler. Number 3, as cited before, switch out to some bulbs. LED light bulbs have come way down in cost. They're a tenth of what they used to be. There are really interesting designs now. Edison bulbs actually can have long filament-looking bulbs, and they look great in your restaurant. You can get rebates for them, which I'll highlight here in a moment. But again, swapping out 12 75-watt incandescent bulbs, which is kind of an average one for your restaurant, to a 15-watt LED will save you $400 a year just on energy costs. And something that people often don't think about is these last between 10 and 25 years versus an incandescent is about 2 years. So you're also saving on cost of replacing the LEDs or the incandescent bulbs themselves, and then the labor costs involved in swapping those out. So again, easy to do, little bit of upfront cost, but pays for itself very, very quickly. Step 4, really look at your refrigeration coils. You'd be surprised how dirty they get, how quickly. Here's one example from a local restaurant in DC. And while it's hard to judge exactly how much this is costing you, it does, if it gets really bad, it does double the energy drain on the grid for your one refrigerator. And any restaurant may have, 4, 5, or 6 refrigerators, including walk-ins. So all you really have to do is take a brush and brush this off once a month, and it will save you energy. Step 5, insulate hot water pipes. You're heating up the water, you're paying for it, you're running it through the pipes are radiating heat out, you're losing money. Simple as that. Often there are rebates for this as well. And for every 6 feet of material, it may cost you $2, but you'll save some real money, a couple of dollars per foot for just insulating lines, you could do it in like 20 minutes. Very, very simple. And lastly, number 6 is a startup shutdown schedule. So, just like a car, you wouldn't want your commercial food service equipment, a fryer, oven, griddle, just sitting there idling for no reason. I've gone into restaurants and seen, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon between the lunch and dinner shifts, a full broiler just on full blast, shooting up heat and natural gas and energy into the air. There were no customers in the restaurant. The whole thing could have been shut down, but if you're worried about, the startup time, turn off half of it. You can make a hot dog, hamburger, steak on that, no problem, and just turn off half of the broiler. So, really intensive equipment, you might need to take like 30 minutes to heat up, but usually it takes about 20 minutes to heat up a fryer or something like that. So just timing and telling your kitchen staff to time that. And a great example is Sherry's Cafes and Pies out in Oregon, and each location, of which they have dozens, saves about $4,000 a year on turning on and shutting off equipment at the appropriate times. So we're talking about some real savings here that's available to everyone and doesn't cost any money. So all of these kind of put together, along with getting Energy Star qualified equipment, can really pay off. And there's free money available from the DC Sustainable Energy Utility. If you just contact Ms. Harold, she'd be happy to help you. On a couple of audits I did here locally, using Energy Star equipment, switching out light bulbs, doing some startup shutdown schedules, doing the insulation, I've seen 3 audits on energy water savings that would save between $5,000 and $7,000 a year on really simple, easy to do things. So can only highly, highly recommend doing this. And the DC SEU will help offset some of these costs and even give you this really cool starter kit with LED light bulbs, pre-print spray valve, and aerators for hand sinks. So again, just take this list and get it started. You could literally do it on a weekend, no problem. And for some contact, if you'd like some more information, please follow us on Twitter. We have a Facebook page. And again, the 80 videos on the YouTube channel on Cafes Conserve. So with that, I'd love to open it up to any questions. Anka or Patty, did we receive any?
I have not seen any questions yet, but if anyone would like to, you can submit your questions on the right-hand side of the screen, and we'll wait about a minute or so to see if there are any questions that have popped up in the meantime. But these were fantastic presentations, and there's a lot of great information, I think, for not just if you own the building, but also some of these things I think can be done if you're a tenant in the space as well.
And maybe while we're waiting, I might put Stuart on the spot, if that's okay, and ask, how have your employees received some of these changes? Did you find that they were very receptive, or was there a lot of pushback and kind of, we want to do the way we've been doing?
I would say culturally we're already at the level, one of the key phrases we use as a culture is embracing complexity. So change, we're always poised to change. And something like this is a matter of just reframing it for them. I don't think that, I was trying to think of any resistance out there, and there was not. The employees were very enthusiastic. The managers got behind it readily. So good question, but I can't think of any resistance.
Yeah, and actually, Stu, this is Anka, to follow up on that question from Jeff, were there certain strategies or approaches that you found worked best when kind of introducing these changes, and then some others that didn't work as well, maybe, in terms of how these were received by your employees?
Well, I would, strangely enough, probably the thing that was most difficult, especially for the dining room managers, was losing control of the thermostat. On a warm day, not to put the thermostat down to 65 and think you're doing a good job by freezing up the compressor. So, at a certain point, it was a trust fall for them, and we've gotten over that. But I can't think of anything else. No, everybody got behind it pretty well.
Great. So we do have one more question. I'm happy to hear that there was a lot of support too, and I think to your point, you already have, your culture was already one that kind of was supportive of those types of changes. So that's exciting to hear. We have a question from Jay Wilson from DOEE. His question is, DC is home to a lot of mixed-use projects. Do you three have advice on how to structure leases so that restaurants and tenant spaces can also take advantage of overall building efficiency strategies, such as solar, thermal, heat recovery, et cetera, et cetera? Roger, did you maybe want to take this one?
This is Jeff. I'd say I don't personally have a ton of experience with renegotiating leases or talking to them, but what I've heard both from the retail industry and some restaurateurs is, really broach that early. If you're getting into, if you can do it before you sign a contract, it's obviously always better. And then bring it up with your landlords and kind of talk it through. This is a really common problem for recycling and composting, which is not quite as sexy as, putting up a solar panel or something like that. But we do find that a lot of locations will have issues with shared recycling, with other buildings, or you're in a mall and the waste is being hauled away by just one large company. There's no way to recycle or compost. So really broaching that early on that side and talking it through with when renegotiation comes up, I think is probably the best way.
Thank you, Jeff. And Roger, have you had any experiences with this, or Stu?
Well, we generally don't get involved on the sort of the lease negotiation side. I do know that, or I would say, I think that there has definitely been a big change in awareness of potential tenants, whether they be sort of restaurant, retail, or other, in terms of asking the right questions of the existing building and building owners when they negotiate the lease. I think there was a time when people would just feel as though the utility bills were going to be what they were going to be, and there wasn't much that could be done about it. But I think that has changed a lot, and people understand the impact, and they understand that not all buildings are created equal. So the right questions are being asked.
Great. I think, Stu, did I interrupt?
No, not at all. I don't have very much specific information on it. I know that when we are talking to landlords with our newest concept, beefsteak, which is a fast casual concept dealing with sexy vegetables, that we do talk about it with the landlords, every aspect of it, We also go after the rebates associated with this type of energy usage. Everything that we put into the space is energy efficient. The trash area has to be devoted to a biodegradable and all of the services associated with that. So it is important to us as far as any type of savings or specifics on that. I don't have that at my fingertips. I certainly can share it with anybody that might be interested.
Great. Thank you so much.
One question I'd like to ask you, if I could ask one question of our speaker team here. It seems like there's been two big changes that have taken place in DC in the last couple of years with respect to the codes. One is that there's a little bit more flexibility in terms of how roof space and amenity space can be used on top of our buildings. And the second is with regard to stormwater. Again, new buildings and renovated projects are required to collect stormwater from the roof and store it on site. With those two things together, I wonder if we might see an increase of people considering urban gardens on the roofs of the buildings, and if so, how could that be connected to the restaurants, and would they be able to use those vegetables locally within the restaurants?
Well, funny you should bring that up. In most of our restaurants, that's exactly what we do. We have rooftop gardens. If you don't mind going up straight up to the roof on Oymel, we have a rooftop garden there in Bethesda, and we're looking to do this in all of our locations. Strangely enough, I just asked our head culinarian to go and meet with a farmer to oversee all of these. And so it is important to us. We do harvest what we can from them. What we find is successful are microgreens, and we utilize that as garnish as well as ingredients into recipes.
And this is Jeff. So I don't have a ton of experience with rooftop gardens, but we did do a video with a Kimpton property off of DuPont Circle on P. That's Urbana, the restaurant Urbana. And they had a really nice rooftop garden that they built themselves with a ton of basil, tomatoes, eggplants, all kinds of different gardens as an Italian concept. And what they found is it really brought home not only fresh vegetables and fresh herbs, but the chefs really appreciated it because they were tending the vegetables. They were, some of them helped carry the dirt up the steps, to an 8th-story building. And they really got a lot out of it and, really helped not only bring that sort of idea of sexy vegetables, to quote, Stuart, but also that it takes a lot of work to create these things and really appreciate it a lot more. So I think there's an exciting trend moving towards sort of hyper-local efforts like that. But, it does take some work, time, and I think the changes in D.C. and the ordinances is a good part of that too.
Great. Any other questions from either from the presenters to others or from the participants? I know Lewis had mentioned that if you Google Greenleaf, this is per the prior conversation, that you'll get some information on how to approach the landlord. And I also wanted to put a little plug in again for the SmarterDC Challenge. If you go to the SmarterDCChallenge.com website and you go to the Knowledge Center and also look at Greenleaf, you're going to find some information as well as data and a presentation on green leases that we had done last year around this time, I believe, or just about. Yeah. So if there are no other questions, then I think we can wrap it up and give everyone back a few more minutes of their day. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Roger, Stu, and Jeff, for presenting and for this great information, and definitely different aspects of energy efficiency and energy saving. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. We're going to be, again, like I said before, providing the recording, and we're also going to be putting this on our YouTube channel for the SmarterDC Challenge. So thanks, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.